Ladies and gentlemen, what the world has been waiting for, what the world needs now, the one, the only, amazing, original, Johnny Blaze. Often imitated, but never duplicated. There's Johnny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the original Johnny Blaze Show. It's great to be here as I blaze right in with my karate kick. Let's have a blazing hot fun time. There are two times in every man's life when he does not understand a woman at all. The first time is when he marries her. The second time is after he marries her. What's the fastest way to turn your sofa into a sofa bed? Just forget your wife's birthday. My girlfriend keeps telling me that she needs more space, so last night I locked her outside and threw away the key. Why is divorce so expensive? Because it's worth it. Last night I met a man at a bar, and he told me that he has the most dangerous job in the world. And I asked him, what is it? And he said, I do things without asking my wife's permission first. I dated this one woman for several months, and after that time, she never apologized for anything. Then one day she said to me, I'm sorry I ever met you. You're a real jerk. I shouted back to her, that's great. You're finally making progress. I often heard the secret to a long, happy marriage is to never to go to bed angry. This must be true. Every time I meet a married couple, they act like they haven't had a good night's rest in years. We have a blazing hot fun show with a special guest. She is a multi-talented and award-winning actress, writer, producer, and comedian. So please give a big warm welcome and say hello to Jennifer Lieberman. Hey, Jennifer Lieberman, hi. Hi, Jen.
Hello, how are you, Johnny Blaze?
I'm real good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Well, you look happy. You got a nice smile on your face.
Yes, yeah. I'm really happy to chat with you tonight. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy that you're my guest. That's for sure, Jen. Yeah, you know, a lot of people in life, they have a most exciting and wonderful story about their life. Most people really do. So, can you do me a favor? Can you tell me all about your history of your life and how you got started in entertainment and everything, and where you're from?
Yeah, definitely. So, I was born in Toronto, Canada, raised in a small town north of the city called Maple. And I think I had a little bit of a unique upbringing. My mom is from Tunisia, North Africa. And so I have a really rich culture. My dad's side is Polish, and I definitely have a rich culture on that side. Just other than my family, I've never met anyone from Tunisia, like other than my immediate family or the people who came on the boat with my family. So I feel like that's kind of unique, and nobody would guess in a million years by looking at me that I'm half African, and that my mom's native languages are French and Arabic. So that's really cool. And I was raised spending a lot of time with my Tunisian grandparents. So the food is something that's like a staple in my life. A lot of spicy dishes, a lot of like different couscouses and things like that. And that's another thing too. Like I've only really heard of like two Tunisian restaurants, one in France that I've been to, and one in Los Angeles on Sunset called Moon of Tunis. So I think that's kind of unique in terms of, like, everybody has a unique story, and everybody's upbringing is, you know, definitely culturally rich. So that's one thing. So when I do stand up, I introduce myself as an African Canadian ginger Jew. I kind of feel like I might be the only combination of that in the world. So
that's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so that's lots of fun. And I've always been interested in like family history, like my grandparents met at a well. And my other granddad also came to Canada on a boat from Poland. And like one of my favorite stories that he told me is like the first time he ever smelled an orange for the first time in his life. He was like in the bowels of the boat, and a woman like peeled an orange to feed her son. And he had never smelled something so sweet and fragrant in his life. And she left the peel on a bench. So he like ran to the peel and tried to eat it, but the peel was quite bitter. So just things like I've always been so fascinated by stories and storytelling. So in terms of entertainment, like I started writing when I was 8 because it's so funny. One of your friends, because I looked up your documentary, one of your friends, Dennis Haskins, who played Mr. Belding,
Right.
My first script I ever wrote at 8 years old was a spec script for Saved by the Bell because I wanted to be on the show. So that's how I started writing scripts when I was a small child, because I would just watch TV shows that I just wanted to be on. So I would like invent some sort of guest character role for myself. Like I would like sit and daydream, close my eyes. I would lie down in my mom's closet and close the door because that was like the darkest place in the house. And I would just kind of like close my eyes and daydream myself into these shows. And then I'd like go grab a notebook and like handwrite dialogue.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was like, and of course I was like in love with Zach Morris.
You're in love with who? What was that?
Zach Morris, like from Saved by the Bell, the
Zach
Mark
Morris.
Hall.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was like the first show that I wrote spec scripts for. And then by the time I was like 12, I wrote my first original screenplay. Once again, like handwriting these things. I wasn't typing them at that age. So I always knew from a very young age that I wanted to tell stories and that I wanted to perform. But it wasn't until after university that I moved to New York and started to pursue a career in theater. Like while I was in university in Canada, I started studying method acting and took some elective courses at university. I wasn't in the theater program, so I couldn't do like the big, the really good classes, but I could take like intro to acting, intro to mime, and I did a degree in philosophy and lit. So in philosophy, we read a lot of the Greek plays, and then in lit, I would take dramatic literature. So I would take Shakespeare's contemporaries, because I knew that would help me with my playwriting eventually, or my screenplay writing that I knew one day I was going to do.
Well, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful story. It really is.
Thank
your culture
you.
and your upbringing. Wow. Yeah. It sounds like you've come a long way too.
Yeah. Like I kind of crafted in New York, and that's kind of where I learned the ropes and did theater for a while, and then I got into film. I was running a small little theater company in the East Village for a few years, and I never went to theater school, so that's how I learned everything. I auditioned, got into the company as an actor, worked behind the scenes if they couldn't use me for a piece. And within a couple of years, I was running the company, producing and raising the funds and doing everything. And it was kind of the best education.
You had on-the-job training in theater. You didn't really have to go to school, it sounds like, from what you're telling me.
Well, yeah, I'm really grateful for that kind of training because I learned it in a very practical setting. Just over my travels of working in theater and film over the past almost 2 decades, a lot of people from film school come out with ideal idea of how things are supposed to run. Because in school, you're kind of in a bubble and you have access to equipment and sound stages, and you get all your permits for free. And You can use union actors for free and things like that. So it doesn't really teach you like the nitty gritty, kind of guerrilla practical stuff that you're going to have to adapt to when you're out in the real world before you kind of have that calling card for yourself where you can afford the bigger budgets and the union actors and pay for the expensive permits and things like that. Like I'm using the film comparison, but in theater too, it's like you're in a pressure cooker. You have to raise money or come up with it somehow. And the reality is, like, you don't always make your money back. You're lucky to break even.
I see. Wow. Well, which do you prefer now? Do you prefer writing plays and acting in plays, or being an actress in film?
That's such a tough question because I really enjoy both. The mediums are so different, and my dream is to be able to split my time between the two. Susan Sarandon said in an interview a while back that theater is like making love and film acting is like masturbating. Because sometimes they're doing a close-up on you and the other actor isn't even there to do the scene with you.
Right.
Whereas theater, it's just more connected in the moment. It's not stop and go. Like film is always stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. And sometimes the actor feels like they're just getting to like the good part. They're just getting it. And they're like, cut, we got what we need. We're moving on.
Well, you have to make changes and improvise depending upon, I guess, the script. Now, I know you won an award. You're award-winning actress as far as like a theater. You had a very interesting. You did a one-woman show, I guess. Year of the Slut was called.
Yes.
I thought that was fascinating, reading that you were involved in playing. I guess you wrote it and you acted out all the roles. What were there, about 25 or 30 roles or more?
No, there were 10. There were only 10 in that one, but I did another piece where I played 7 different roles. So like between those two pieces, I did 17.
Wow.
So yeah, when I moved to LA, I was there about a year and couldn't find rep, and somebody I met at a creative workshop suggested I write myself a vehicle, a one-woman show. And coincidentally, that first year in LA, I met 2 different women in acting class who were doing one-woman shows, and I produced both of their one-woman shows for them because I had that know-how from running the theater company in New York.
Oh.
However, I was so in awe of these actresses and their abilities. They were so brilliant that as I was producing, like, I never had any intention. I wasn't doing this like as research. I was literally just trying. I felt like their shows were so great and they deserved a place in the world. And if I could help make that happen, I was happy to. And I literally resolved watching these women that like, this is something so out of my wheelhouse, I would never even attempt it. And then fast forward a year later, somebody suggested to me, her husband owned a big literary agency. And she suggested, I met her at a creative workshop. She said, you need to write yourself a vehicle, write yourself a one-woman show to showcase all of your abilities. You know, you're a good writer, you're a good actress, you're funny, you can do dramatic work, you can do comedy, and you can do a whole range of stuff. So basically, that's what I tailored the show to. I jam-packed in everything I thought I could do. So 10 different characters, 10 different accents. I played male characters, female characters, old people, young people. And then, of course, like the writing itself showcased the story arc and my ability to write jokes, and then also have it be heartfelt. So yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. Because I thought, okay, I'll get some agents to come and managers and directors and I'll be off and running. And that's not what happened at all.
No.
But I decided to stick with it. because it was a lot of fun. I think the most exciting thing about doing that show was surprising myself for an hour and a half, and to like snap from one person to the next.
Wow.
So I decided to stick with it, and I mounted it in LA a couple of times, and then I got into a festival in New York, and I ended up winning the Audience Choice Award, which just mind-blowing.
You won? What kind of award did you win? Was it a...
It was the Audience Choice Award at the Fringe
Awards.
Festival.
Oh, great. That's awesome. It really is.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's funny how the goals that I had when I set down this path were very specific, but none of them came to fruition. But I stuck with it, and I got some other really cool stuff out of it. And then actually I adapted the book into a novel. So now the novel adaptation is behind me, and it's called Year of the What?
Well, yeah, I was going to mention that. I thought that was interesting also. Apparently it was, at first you did A Year of the Slut, and I guess that was banned. That word was banned because they considered it offensive. So you changed it from slut to what?
Yeah, so it wasn't, I wouldn't say banned. It was banned from ads, from advertising on social media, on Amazon. So the book is selling on Amazon, but they banned me from buying any ads to let people know it was on Amazon. And same with Facebook and Instagram. I don't consider the word to be offensive in the context that I'm using it, because I'm basically deconstructing it, and I'm trying to shed light on a topic that the word slut is usually used as a weapon against women, as we're young women. When we're younger, and when we're our teens and our 20s, whether we're promiscuous or not, that's just the word that we get attacked with all the time from both men and women.
Right.
It's a very easy dig. So it is a comedy. It's like a Sex in the City. It's a coming of age, self-discovery story about sexuality. But I also really wanted to like take a look at that word and try and figure out like, what does that even mean? Like, and in this day and age, what is promiscuous? You know, we're not living in the 50s where women go right from their parents' home to their husband's home right out of high school. Sometimes they weren't even finishing high school in the 50s. They were leaving to get married. And now we live in a very different world where more women are graduating university than men, and not getting married until later in life. But we never, as in terms of like the female social culture, we never talk about sexual health. Like, as young women, we're just told, don't do it. And then women get into their 20s, 30s, their body functions properly, so they have certain desires. Meanwhile, society, we never revisit that conversation from being a teenager to being a young woman in your 20s or 30s, and how your sexual life is going to evolve. So that's basically what I tackle in the book. Very long-winded explanation.
Well, that's interesting. That is very interesting. How times have changed from the past to the way they are right now. That's right.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do it from a woman's point of view.
Yeah, and I do like to talk about sexual health, because whether you're a man or a woman, if you're in your 20s and you go to the doctor and you say, hey, I don't have these desires at all, you know, I don't really function as a sexual being, that would be cause for medical concern. However, we never talk about it in that respect in society.
I see. Well, I guess there's times for it to change. You're trying. It's not like you're entertaining it. Well, it's not like you're doing things based upon your own, probably some of your own experiences and how you feel, and you're trying to help. You're trying to help women be educated and learn more about that. That's what it sounds like.
Well, yes, and also encouraging women to discover who they are independent of, because until we know who we are, we don't know who the right partner for what our needs are is going to be.
That makes sense.
And I think, like I started off with my Tunisian upbringing, and there's a very old-fashioned upbringing. You know, my grandparents are immigrants, my mother's an immigrant, I'm first generation on my mother's side. And being a woman, my influences and my guidance came from that very old world mentality from an Arabic country. Meanwhile, I'm living in Canada in a very progressive time. So I was really torn, and especially after I moved to New York, because when I moved to New York, I had never had a boyfriend. I was a virgin. I was saving myself for the one. I did all the things I was supposed to do. And then when the one fell apart several years into the relationship, I found myself really lost in the world, because I felt like I was really sheltered, and I made some mistakes. I made concessions for a relationship, and I kept putting the man before my own needs and passing up opportunities. So yeah, I think that I was trying to like bridge the gap between the conversations that I had versus the ones I wish I had had.
Well, I guess you found out, you discovered, that maybe you're spending too much time thinking about others when you really should be concentrating on yourself. That's what it sounds like. And finding out who you are and what you need. It's like, when I know myself, then I'll be free. I think that came from, there was a book called Worlds to Come. I remember back in college. And that's what it said. When I know myself, then I'll be free. You have to know yourself in order to be able to go forward to do the things that you want to do. Because a lot of people, they don't really know themselves, and they're too busy trying to please others instead of trying to please themselves.
Exactly. And I think especially young women fall into that category. And I know a lot of things are changing now. The world is a much different place than it was even 10 years ago when I started developing the show. We've come so far, but it's just interesting to me that so much of the narrative that young women are given is you have to find a man and you're not kind of complete, or your life isn't worthwhile without being in a partnership, without having children, things like that. And a lot of women today, they have other goals. Not that they don't want that at all, but a lot of women have career goals, they have passions, they have things they want to accomplish that don't have anything to do with being in a relationship.
Well, that's important to accomplish your goals. I think it's very important, because if you do something that you truly love, I think the positive is going to come back to you. And you don't want to have any regrets later on down the line and say, I wanted to happy and do all those things and I didn't do it.
Definitely.
We only have life once, so you want to go through it and experience all the good things that you feel that you love doing and you want to do it without any regrets. So you're doing the right thing. You're definitely doing the right thing.
Thank you. And so in the book begins with her going through this terrible heartbreak, and her thinking that her goal is to find the one, to find the guy, to find
the knight in shining armor.
The knight in shining armor. And she has this, I had to take quite a bit of liberties as the show evolved, and then as the book evolved. The seeds started off with my life and my experience, and then it took on a life of its own. And I borrowed stories from friends, and I borrowed other people's experiences, to make it into something fun and entertaining and outrageous. But the undercurrent of trying to figure out who you are and what you really want out of life, is the same for everybody. Because until we have that, Like, for example, I think, the baby boomers, they were like the first generation with like such a high divorce rate. And a lot of those couples got together in high school. And in high school, you haven't really had a chance to evolve. And then by the time these couples were in their late 20s, early 30s, they realized they really had nothing in common anymore, because they were kids when they got married, and then they grew up a bit, and they're like, oh, wait, this isn't really the path I wanted, but I didn't know enough back then to know.
Well, that's how you learn through experiences. This is a catharsis for you, is what this is. It sounds like you, by able to draw on your own experiences and to be able to write them out and then act them out. And it's hard enough just to do the writing is a challenge, but then to be able to act out so many characters and roles and getting through your own experiences and other people's experiences. So you're helping yourself, at the same time you're helping others, helping other millions of women. I'm sure that maybe you're not aware of what's happening. You're a trailblazer, and you're leading the way, is what you're doing, Jen.
Oh, you are too kind. You are too kind. Yeah, I just hope that, first of all, it's entertaining. It's a lot of fun. So many women have said to me they picked it up and they were going to read one chapter, and they ended up reading the book in one sitting. They were up till like 3 a.m. because it was just one outrageous experience after the other. But the undertone is about self-acceptance. And until we fall in love with ourselves, we're not really in a place to fall in love with anybody else.
That's true. How can you love someone else if you don't love yourself or don't know yourself?
Yeah.
That's true. So you probably had some people who have inspired you, and you do kind of remind me of like a Sarah Jessica Parker, Sex and the City, that type of thing. So you have that kind of bubbly personality and smile. And I think that's maybe that's one of your people that inspired you, or maybe there's some others too, perhaps.
Definitely. I remember when Sex and the City first came out. I was still in high school, so it wasn't something that I got into right away. It was something that oh, what does that mean? Like, oh, these girls are, sleeping around in New York. Like, oh, that seemed like something that wasn't appealing. But as I got older, it became a huge inspiration to me, and I actually do compare the story to Sex and the City, but to a character who's 10 years younger. So the character is not as self-assured as a woman in her mid-30s who's already financially stable and has had some career success and has had several relationships to get to know herself and to get to know what she wants and what she's not willing to put up with.
Well, this is really good. This is certainly better for you to do something like this than it is to have to seek help. Some people have to go through therapy or get some other types of. But this is wonderful. It really is. It's exciting.
Thank you.
You're able to draw on your own experiences and others to do something that you truly love from your heart. No one's forcing you. What you're doing from your mind, body, heart, and soul. You're putting everything into it, and it's a passion, and it's something that you truly love, and it allows you to be creative and learn about yourself and help others at the same time.
Definitely.
So I salute you, and I think that's wonderful. I really do.
You are so kind. You're just very sweet.
Well, thank you.
I hope so. I hope people get something out of it. And I think my biggest concern when I started writing the book is I didn't want it to be trite. As much as it's a fun dating adventure in New York, the philosopher in me, as I mentioned before, I have a degree in philosophy. It's like I couldn't just make it something that was purely fluff. Like, there had to be something that it was anchored in. And and that was my own experience of going through the journey of falling in love with myself.
This is good. See, this is sincere, and you're finding out things about yourself probably you weren't aware of. You're loving what you're doing, you're learning, and you're teaching others at the same time. So it's not just about, of course, financial. That helps too. I'm sure it helps you. If you're on Amazon, you're getting a lot of great reviews. It looks like I've seen some of the reviews are excellent. On You're the What and everything. and you had some awards also in Year of the Slut. And also, I must say, too, besides that, I've noticed that you've done some other, it's interesting that you have done some other projects. It looks like you did one on, and it's on Amazon with many reviews, of virtual meetings, about how to improve virtual meetings.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So about a year ago, just over a year ago, a friend of mine is an executive coach in New York City, and he called me up and he said, hey, I have a couple of clients who feel like they're struggling with Zoom meetings. They're struggling with, engaging with their team. And if I might be able to do some acting coaching, because I've done acting coaching in the past. I was the performing arts director at a school. And also I'm a filmmaker, and I started producing the theater company in New York, and then I've gone on to independent film production as well. So basically this friend said, do you think you can help with a few of my clients and give them some coaching? So I like to be organized, and I had to take a minute and think for myself, like, could I do this? And that's when I kind of came up with 7 steps, because I didn't feel like it would be fair of me to charge somebody without me actually having like information that I can send them, like written information, and feeling like I make sense. So in coaching these executives, I kind of came up with this idea. I came up with the 7 steps. I didn't think I was going to write a book about it, but the more I did it, the more I realized, like, wow, this Zoom thing isn't going away after the pandemic. And there are a lot of people who are not millennials, who didn't grow up with iPhones and ring lights and all of that stuff, that do need to use this in their day-to-day business now. So that's when I decided to write the book. Like, I just basically took those 7 steps that I had come up with to work with clients one-on-one, and I turned each step into a chapter. And I hope it is something that does help people. It's super simple. It's super accessible. And I start with things like frame, how to frame yourself properly, what's in your background, that,
right.
Curating your background properly is a missed opportunity that a lot of people don't think about.
I see.
One of the first things that I talk about is raising your device so it's at eye level with you, because we've seen so many of these interviews, even on the news on TV, where they have an expert come on and their laptop is on their desk, and we can see up onto their ceiling because they just leave the laptop where it is, and we're kind of looking at them in this really unattractive upward angle. So, something as simple as put a shoebox under your laptop and lift it up so the camera is in line with your eyes makes a world of difference, especially if you're a salesperson, if you're doing a pitch meeting. The differences are not going to be like blatant differences, but the person on the other end is going to notice that you look more professional. They're not necessarily going to know why. So things like that, and then other things about performance and what you're wearing. We've also seen those things where people don't wear their pants at their meeting. They're just wearing their shirt, and then they get up by accident and they're pantsless. It makes for a good joke, but not if you're the CEO and your whole team is.
Yeah, that could be embarrassing. That could be very embarrassing. Yeah, first impressions are lasting impressions. That's right. You want to make the good positive impression.
Yeah, and the fact that this is something that's not going away, we can't be lazy about it anymore. We can't be like, oh, we're in lockdown for a month or 2. I wasn't prepared. We've had a year and a half of being in and out of being, limited in our mobility because of the pandemic. So we're at the point in time where it's not a temporary thing anymore. And right. For people who do use this regularly, it would behoove them to step up their game. And just to get back to the pants thing, so I talk about wardrobe in terms of performing, because when we have a big meeting to go to, we do put on a costume. You know, we don't call it a costume, but we have our, you know, whether it's our lucky tie or our lucky blazer, or, you know, like for women, sometimes it's a pair of shoes that, you know, just makes them feel like they're a baller type of thing. So all of these things affect how we feel. We can't fake how we feel on camera. There's something so intimate about being close up that you can't lie. And I compare it to theater acting versus film acting. And so just tips like that, like wear your pants, wear your shoes, wear the cologne. Even if nobody else can smell it, you can smell it. And it gives you a different sensorial experience for the way you present yourself on camera.
Oh yeah, appearances are important. If you dress nicely and you feel good, then you're going to come across that way. You're going to come across in a very happy, positive way.
Yeah, and even wearing proper shoes, because a lot of people aren't wearing their shoes when they're doing these Zoom meetings. But if you wear a proper pair of shoes, if women wear a pair of heels or men wear a pair of dress shoes, I guarantee you will sit in your chair differently than if you're wearing a pair of sweatpants and socks and your dress shirt.
Oh yeah, well I feel that's important myself. Whenever I take pride in what I'm doing in my shows, and I want to try to dress up the best I can, because it makes me feel good. I really feel it reflects upon my performance to the other people that I'm talking to and interviewing.
Yep, definitely.
So like I say, that's important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then of course there's some acting tips and performance tips, and you know, I suggest that people find a song that really gets them pumped up and play that song and kind of dance it out before they sit down in front of their Zoom meeting, because you want to be energetic. You want to have energy. If I was sitting here talking like this to you, people are going to they're going to change the channel. They're going to shut the computer off.
That's true.
So if you're not excited about what you're talking about, and also using like active verbs. Active verbs are an acting trick that we use to make scenes more dynamic. It's like, okay, what are you trying to get out of this person? What are you trying to achieve? You know, are you trying to inspire them? Are you trying to excite them about a new product? If you're selling something, if you're pitching something, you want to gain trust. So all of these things, you're going to present your piece differently depending on what you want to achieve or what you want to evoke in your audience.
What I noticed with you is you have a beautiful smile, you have striking eyes, you use your hands a lot, use a lot of expression, which is good, which is really good, because you know that means that you're feeling it. You know, you're putting passion into it. You're not just going through with a monotone like you're saying or because if people are bored, right, they can change the channel. And you know, we want to keep them alive. We want to keep them inspired. We want to keep them going forward. As I say, I want people to be blazing and amazing, as I'm the original Johnny Blaze. That's correct. That's the kind of people. These are the kind of people that guests that I like to have on my shows. And you fit the right category. That's for sure.
Oh, thank you so much.
When I do something, I wanted to do the best I can do, and to be as prepared as I can be, of course. Mm-hmm. You know, I want people to tune in. I want them to like it. I want them to go for it. You know, whether they be subscribing or watching or whatever. But anyway, we're on the right track. We are.
Fabulous.
That's great. No, that's fantastic. I noticed that you have there's another book that you wrote too. It was also, again, it's 7 steps. I guess there's a reason behind it, because maybe 7 is so much easier to remember and it's not that difficult to use. I noticed you use 7 a lot, but it has to do with an audiobook. You were had to record, I guess, and publish your own audiobook.
Yeah, so during the lockdown, a colleague of mine suggested that I record my audiobook, because I was at home with not much to do, and we were revamping. I was revamping Year of the Slut into Year of the What. So we did some new artwork, and I actually had a new editor do another once over just because there were a few typos that weren't caught. So while I was going back and forth with some artwork, the piece wasn't ready yet to be published on Amazon. My colleague suggested, well, you have a couple of months. Why don't you record your audiobook? And I thought to myself, see, I don't know if this is like my key to success or my key to failure, but anytime somebody says I should do X or I should do Y, I do it. So you should do a one-woman show. Okay, I will. Maybe that could be my break. You should write a book. Oh, okay, I'll do that. Maybe that could be my break. You should do an audiobook.
You said make your own. You said make your own break. That's right.
Well,
instead of waiting for others to come to you, you're creating and developing your own techniques, whether it be acting in a play, with a one-woman play, or developing the characters and promoting that, or then turning that into a book, a wonderful book, it's got many great reviews, to even doing these other projects which you're talking about, the virtual meetings, to even now creating and publishing and making your own audiobook.
Yeah, so I did. I recorded the audiobook, and I messed up so bad.
And you what?
I messed up so bad. I had to throw out
really
the first go at it. I spent well over a month recording because I could only record one chapter in a sitting because it's a lot. And speaking, because even though a chapter's 20 pages, it's impossible to get through that 20 pages without flubbing a word and have to go back, or or making a mistake at intonating in the wrong place, or having to have a sip of water, just little things like that. So I would read the whole chapter out loud twice the day I was recording it. Wow. So I would read it, take a break, and I would also do vocal exercises and articulation exercises to warm up my voice, because speaking for that amount of time is very taxing on your vocal cords. So, long story short, long story long, I tell long stories.
Right.
I messed up so bad recording the first time, just because there were certain techniques that I just didn't know that I needed to be aware of. That I had to throw out all of my work, and I had to start from scratch, and I had to re-record the entire book a second time. So my colleague, when I finished, I was like, oh, I finally finished. And she asked me how it went, and I said, well, I messed up so bad the first time. I recorded the whole book once, had to throw everything in the garbage, and then had to do it all over again.
Wow.
And she said to me, oh, that sounds great. It sounds like now you're ready to write a how-to book about how to record your audiobook, so anybody else out there who wants to do it doesn't have to make all the mistakes that you made and waste all that time.
Saving people time and effort and money. Like, you're messing up yourself, but they're going to learn from your mistakes.
So I actually wrote that one before I did the virtual meeting one, because I recorded my audiobook before I started working with my first client for the executive coaching on Zoom. So it's a how-to of the nuts and bolts of how to not make the same mistakes I made, number one. And then also there are a lot of authors out there who are considering recording their own story, their own audiobook, but a lot of us, we're much better at talking ourselves out of things than talking ourselves into things. So it's also, I wrote it with the voice of kind of a cheerleader, of a yes, you can. It's your story. You're probably the best one suited to tell it.
Wow.
So so it's super encouraging. There's actually an author who I've become friendly with, and she read the book, and she actually emailed me and said, wow, you know what? I never thought I was capable of doing this myself. I thought I'd have to hire someone.
That reminds me again of something I went over and over many times. I wanted to remember that. I thought that was important, that because of your experiences, I think that you ended up doing a blog to begin with, and then a vlog. I never thought I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what happens is the people that think they wouldn't or not be able to, they end up now become able to do it. And so it sounds like you were interviewing other people, other authors, on their own things they didn't think they could, but they ended up doing it. And
yeah.
I found some very interesting on your YouTube channel. Looks like you had some very interesting experiences on that.
Yeah, so I'm still currently doing that. I started that during the pandemic to keep some semblance of sanity. The performer in me, you know, I can only go so long without having some sort of outlet to engage and connect with other people. So I started the vlog thinking that I would talk about my own experiences, but four entries in, I was just like, oh, no. Like, this can't be all about me. Like, I'm sick of myself. That's when I decided to start interviewing other authors. And I specifically chose authors because, being an author myself, I know that there's limited opportunities for us to get the word out about our books. Books aren't as sexy as movies, unfortunately. So I thought it would be really cool to talk to authors. And yeah, the cost of entry is everybody has to trade a story about doing something they never thought they would, and where it led them, how it led them to some sort of breakthrough in either their life or their career. And then after that, they get to talk about their book.
That's really great. That's very exciting and motivating and inspiring. It really is. And I have a feeling that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that this probably started when you were doing your first year of the Slut with the one-woman play. You probably thought at first, when someone told you to do it, you never thought you would. And so you ended up somehow you were able to convince yourself, or that person to convince you, that you didn't think you could, but you ended up doing it. And through that must have motivated you to do the series of.
Yeah, it did. Exactly. That's because a friend of mine suggested with the book relaunching that I needed a presence online. I'm kind of a technophobe, but I really have to push myself, you know, to post on social media and things like that. It's just really not my style. It's funny because I can be super outgoing when I'm talking to people or when I'm on stage, but I am a very private, kind of quiet person, like left to my own devices. Like, I'm not the type who needs to post on social media and get likes and get followers. Like, it's not really something that's important to me. I know it's important in terms of like marketing and career goals, but just in my personal life, I've always shied away from that. So a friend of mine was like, you got to do this. And I was like nauseous at the idea, because I was like, I'm not a vlog person. I'm not a social media person. I'm not an influencer. Like, that's not my brand. And my friend is like, well, make it your brand. Do you want to be successful? And it's like, it's everything that I've done is like, do you want to be successful? Well, you should do this.
Don't talk about it, be about it. That's right.
Yeah. So exactly, I kind of was racking my brain about what would be within my integrity. You know, I'm not the type of person who's going to watch TikTok videos and comment on them. I'm not the type of person who's going to do my makeup on YouTube, you know? So I was really like soul searching, like, what is something within my wheelhouse that I would not just feel comfortable with, but feel proud of to put out into the world. And that's what I came up with. See, I never thought I would, and especially during the pandemic.
So if you didn't think you would, and you did, then why not for others? So you're trailblazing it, you're starting it, and you're the leader, and other people are following now. and with the smile and with your personality and your charm and I've seen some of your videos, then I can see you're talking to people who have made a difference in the world. That makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, I believe that a lot of us give up our power really early on, and we just kind of resolve that, okay, this is just what is. I just have to accept it. This is the hand I was dealt. And I don't think we have to accept anything. I think we have a lot more power if we believe in ourselves, and if we get outside of our barriers of our mind. That's what I call them.
There was a positive image seminar speaker my father, may he rest in peace, he believed it. He used to get the tapes, and he would have been a lecturer in front of audiences on this, but unfortunately he got his dementia, he stroked, and he passed. But
I'm sorry.
Yes, and anyway, I remember, what the mind can believe, the mind can achieve. Bob Proctor used to say.
Yes, that's right.
Don't listen to other people who say it can't be done and everything. I wanted a can't be and do it, and I never did it. Don't associate with negative people, thoughts, or things, or they will rob you of your lifestyle, like robbers in the dark. That's correct. Don't listen to people. I was told by my previous girlfriend, I would never be able to do this. Yeah. She called me a grandpa rapper. She said, I wish you'd look and show, but your age is against you. I told her, I said, listen, you don't know what you're talking about.
No.
You have nothing good to say. Keep your mouth shut. That's what I told her. I said, but you're no success. She said, well, I raised 2 children. I said, well, so every mother does. And then at the end, I had to say it to get it back off my chest. So I called her happy over. That's what I said to her. In other words, I'm not going to please everybody. Like Ricky Nelson said in the garden party, you can't please everybody. Please yourself. But when people tell me no, I say you're wrong. I can and I will, and I'm going to prove them wrong. That's for sure. I don't know if you saw my documentary, but
I watched the trailer. It's funny, the licensing in Canada is different than the licensing in Amazon. I mean, the licensing for Amazon in Canada is different in the US, so I have to find a way to watch it, but I did see the trailer of it. And yes, you're an inspiration too, because, so many people take no for an answer, but, whether it's one no or 1,000 no's, if you don't accept the no and you finally get what you want, what does it matter how many no's it took to get you there?
Well, if you can't see yourself doing it, you're never going to do it. You've got to visualize what you're going to do. Have a plan. Visualize it. And make sure you may get shut down, but the idea is if you believe in yourself, you don't let those negatives and rejections get in your way.
Exactly.
I know I applied for America's Got Talent. That didn't happen. I was there 5.5 years. 5.5 years. 5.5 hours is what I meant to say. I said years. 5.5 hours at the Pasadena Convention Center. Okay, it was exciting. There were a lot of people there. You're going over and over again what you're going to do. And then by the time I got in there, they heard me out. They said it was their favorite song, the song that I did. They wouldn't let me use my CD because they said that if you make the next round, you'll get to do it. And I never heard from them again. But you know what? They did me a favor. America's Got Talent. Yes, it's exciting, and it does bring out talent. There's all kinds. But you have to give your life up to them. You have to sign their agreement. You've got to be excellent, and then they can let you go at any time, and you're doing just what they want. So that's okay. Now I'm doing what I want. So I feel it this way. They did me a favor,
Well,
my own talk show.
And like they say, every time a door closes, another one opens.
Exactly.
Exactly. But sometimes we dwell so much on the closed door in front of us that we can't see the other ones that are opening around us.
That's true.
And I've always been a big believer. Like, my books are under the Make Your Own Break title, and I started Make Your Own Break. It's a production consulting business, and I have a blog for that where I give production advice, because I've been an independent film and theater producer for almost 2 years. It's 2 decades now. It's late here. Sorry. It's almost 1 in the morning in Toronto, so my brain is starting to...
Well, may she rest in peace. Unfortunately, my mom's no longer around, but my mom was correct. She said Canadians are the friendliest people, and she was from Canada. She was from Montreal, Canada, my mother.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So you're like almost a Canuck. But what I was trying to say is, so after I did my one-woman show, I was already 10 years into pursuing an acting career, and not much had happened. Sure, I had run an off-Broadway theater company in the East Village, and that was great experience, but I wasn't making money as an actor, and that's really what I wanted. I wanted to have that as my full-time gig and not have to have a whole bunch of other side jobs and working in offices or working in restaurants. And doing that one-woman show, taking the reins, first of all, I never knew what I was capable of until I took that on. I had never had to do so much as an actor in terms of pushing myself beyond my limit, playing all these different roles, being on stage for that long. And I, after the success in New York and winning the Audience Choice Award, I decided, wow, like this is really the answer, like writing my own vehicles for myself, writing my own projects. Not quite on the scale of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and their Good Will Hunting, but starting it on a small scale, doing short little films, doing a little web series. For the writing, I had control over the types of roles that I was playing. One of the phrases that I use is, when you're an actor early on in your career, you're kind of a victim of what you get cast in. And you're a victim of how people perceive you. And how people see you is not necessarily how you see yourself or how you envision yourself working in the industry. But once you take the reins and you start developing your own projects, you don't have to be a writer. You can find a writer that you really like, that an up-and-coming writer who's kind of in the same boat as you. They know they're good, but they just haven't been able to get through that door yet. So that's when I started Make Your Own Break, because I was like, wow, I know so many talented people who just don't know how to get themselves the right vehicle.
So you made your own break by the one-woman show, and then that set the stage for everything else that you're doing. I don't know, what kind of work were you doing before that? Were you a waitress, or did you work at an office?
I've managed restaurants. I worked at a real estate company in New York. I was the office manager at a commodity brokerage firm. And once Make Your Own Break got off the ground, I've been doing production consulting. I do production management, first AD work, a lot of behind the scenes stuff on independent productions. I also do production budgets, production schedules, and I'm still a producer for hire. So I still produce indie films, music videos, independent theater projects.
You do it all, Jen. You're a Jen of all trades.
You know, I really enjoy the producing side. Of course, if I had a choice, I would always choose to be the actor, because I just love it. That's my favorite thing to do.
That's what I was going to ask you. What was your favorite? Now, talking about that, the acting. Now, that's interesting. There were some acting films that you did. I'm trying to think now. There was A Circle of Fear was one, but there was another one. There was Showstoppers, The Greatest Show in L.A. was another one. And then you had, there was something else. I'm trying to remember what the other one was.
So there have been a few. I actually, if you know who Tommy Wiseau is, he had that cult movie called The Room. The catchphrase is, "You're tearing me apart, Lisa."
Oh, yeah.
So I'm actually a series regular in his sitcom called The Neighbors.
Wow.
And we only did one season, but it was a lot of fun working with him. And I have 2 short films that I wrote and produced and was in myself, and both of them got to screen at the Cannes Film Festival, which was amazing. Tonight's actually the closing night of the festival. and that was like my dream. My dream ever since I was like a teenager in high school was to like have a project that screened at the Cannes Film Festival. So that was really cool.
The Cannes Film, right. Then you did one with Divas. You did another thing with Divas.
Oh, Dumpwater Divas. So that was the first project that I wrote that I filmed. This was after the one woman show. I had written several scripts, as I mentioned, the Saved by the Bell scripts when I was 8, and then I started writing screenplays when I was 12. Wow. But I had produced for other people for many, many, many years before I ever produced anything of my own. So the first piece that I did was the one woman show, The Year of the Slut, and then a friend of mine from acting class came to me and said, hey, my husband bought me a camera. Let's write a little 5-minute short film and shoot it. And that little 5-minute short film we intended to write turned into a 6-episode web series called Dumpwater Divas. It's so wacky. It's like, it was the most fun I ever had in my life. And like till this day, I still wish that like some network would pick it up so I could, so I could work on that for a few years.
Right.
And basically the premise is that there are these 2 girls from Dumpwater, Florida. It's an imaginary place, but it was mentioned on Married with Children. References are an homage to like 80s pop culture and 80s dance movies and things like that. So Rebecca, my writing partner, she was like a prima ballerina growing up. I wasn't a dancer, I was a gymnast, but we decided we'd go to a Zumba class together and go for lunch and talk about this little 5-minute piece we were going to write. And I was like, I have this kind of crazy idea, like about 2 girls from this dumpy little town that were on Star Search when they were like 8. But the town is so dumpy that like 20 years later, they're still the most famous people in that town because they're the only ones who'd ever been on TV.
Wow.
And
great.
I had this, and I was thinking to myself, like, the town is kind of like one of those towns in the middle of America that you go to it and you feel like you're 20 years in the past, because like the cars are all old and the fashion is all old and, they're not kind of up to speed with the new trends. So I thought, okay, this could be like a really fun premise, and of course like the girls have to hate each other, so I decided like, okay, we almost won Star Search, but my character forgot the moves at the last second and just did a backflip instead because she didn't know what to do, and so they would have been famous, but they're not.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. It's screwed up. It wasn't meant to be. That was not meant to be.
Yeah, so then we meet these characters 20 years later, and my character got out of Dumpwater. So the other one's very resentful because I'm like a famous cruise ship dance performer. And my character, this is how wacky it is. My character is an ass to calf model. Not her face, just the back of her leg from her ass to her calf, because she was a leg model for a razor commercial.
And she's jealous of you, it sounds like.
Exactly. So basically, my character shows up back in Dumpwater with a reality TV crew, and the TV show, the contest that we lost, is doing a reunion. And we have another chance at stardom. So
I liked it. I really liked that. That's creative. Like I say, you've got some interesting, very fascinating, interesting stories. That you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have this crazy imagination.
That's okay. Like Elmer Wheeler said, don't sell the steak, sell the sizzlemanship. You want to try to keep it as hot as you can and exciting and unique, what you are. Then there was another one, The Greatest Show, The Showstoppers, The Greatest Show.
So that one, John Lorden is, I never thought I would do. It all comes full circle. My whole life, everything I've done, I never thought I would. But so John Lorden, I met working on a project, and I brought him on to Dump Water. I introduced him to Rebecca, and he directed us in Dump Water, and it was fabulous. Like he just had great comedic instincts, great direction. He knew how to work with the actors. He was so great. And he was working at Cirque du Soleil. And there was a lot of drama going on at Cirque du Soleil at the time, and I think the show ended up closing very prematurely.
Oh.
And this was the Cirque du Soleil production that was happening right in Hollywood. I think in one of the theaters on Hollywood Boulevard. It might have even been like the Kodak Theater or something along those lines. And there was so much drama going on behind the scenes while he was working on Cirque du Soleil. I think he was working in tech. He wasn't an acrobat. He was one of the technicians, whether it was a lighting tech, I don't really remember exactly. But so he wrote that web series based on his crazy experiences behind the scenes at Cirque du Soleil and all the drama and the backstabbing and you know, stuff like that. So he cast me to be to play Elena, who was one of the producer's assistants who was scheming and trying to steal the show and, you know, sleeping around with whoever she thought had the most power.
Wow, that's interesting. That is. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. I'm just thinking, you know, you're going to make comedy, the dump water. You could have said, you dump water on that person's face who's jealous of you, you know, your co-star. You don't call it dump because it's dump water, you know. I'm joking.
Yeah.
But, you know, could have done something like that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that, you know, the business is difficult. I mean, how do you deal with rejection now? Because I noticed whenever an actor goes, there's always a possibility, you know, you're dealing with, if you go out to managers or agents and everything, it's about making money, and they just view you as a money object, not as a human being. And so they reject like nothing, and they're really rude. In fact, if I had the money, it means I would have produced a movie called How to Get Rejected Without Even Trying. But, you know, it's very trying, of course. So how do you deal with that?
So,
everybody deals with that. So. Pardon me?
Sometimes I cry.
You what?
Sometimes I cry.
Oh, you cry? Okay.
You know, yeah, of course.
Real tears or fake?
It never feels
not fake tears,
when...
real tears, right? Not real tears.
Pardon?
I said real tears, not fake tears, right?
Yeah, so, but I have a few champions who have been behind me. A couple of them are friends that I've known since way before I ever started in the industry, who really get me and believe in me. And then I do have a couple of champions and mentors in the industry who believe in my work. So whenever I get down, there was just before the pandemic, I had a really devastating rejection from a literary agent. I remember I was so upset about the whole thing. And I just called my mentor, and I didn't tell him I was upset. I didn't tell him anything, but I just started, you know, I was just like, hey, we haven't chatted in a while. And, you know, I have a couple of ideas that I'm working on because I had been rejected from a literary agent. So of course I needed somebody to reassure me that my writing was half decent. And I remember just calling him up and just telling him a couple of things I was working on, and he was just really impressed with my imagination. And he was like, wow, he's like, we don't know what's going to happen, but you definitely are talented. And that's kind of enough, you know, it's kind of enough for me to be like, okay, I'll brush myself off, I'll get back on the horse, and we'll.
You get some good mentors that they don't brush you off. No, they don't just say, I'm giving you the brush off. Feel like a former hairstylist said to me one time, I'm giving the brush. Okay, they actually listen to you and they care about you, and they're willing to be compassionate and empathetic and understand your feelings and try to help you. Anybody in particular that inspired you?
So I've been inspired by so many people, and like everybody, you mentioned Sarah Jessica Parker before. I've definitely been inspired by her work. Some people even compare me to her looks wise, especially when my hair is a little longer. But so one of my mentors I met in a creative workshop that he led, where I met the woman who told me to do the one-woman show. Oh. And we met there, and he was impressed with my writing. He was impressed with my performance ability. And he basically pulled me aside after the whole thing was over. And he was like, let's definitely stay in touch. And, you know, I'm happy to give you guidance, and I'm happy to help you along the way. So that was wonderful. Mine sent him a short script that I had written, and he read my script and wanted to meet me. And he's an Academy voter and a BAFTA voter and a very accomplished producer as well. And, you know, so we met, and he's read everything I've written since that piece, and he's critiqued, given me notes, given me feedback, whether it's rough cuts of my film projects or early drafts of my writing. And you know, so having somebody who's already at the top of the food chain acknowledging that my work is worthwhile really helps me keep going.
Very fortunate that because of your personality, you're likable, and your smile and your charisma, you're able to attract, not repel, but attract the right kind of people who listen and who care. And that's certainly better than I remember back in college when I had my counselor from Learning and Resource Center for Living and Learning. No, it was a counselor at the university, at Cal State University in Northridge. I used to go for advice. And what did he say to me once? I got to go back to someone else who has another student has a better chance of succeeding. That's a terrible thing. Terrible. Oh,
terrible.
Yeah, I know.
Terrible. I know in this industry, people really do love to tell you what you think.
There's experiences of managers and agents who you send things into them, and they're just rude. I mean, they're just not interested, but they don't even respond. I mean, they want you to send them, but then they're just cold and everything. You're fortunate. You're not getting the cold shoulder. You're getting the warm shoulder. You're getting attention and the right kind of people. Oh, no, I'm happy for you, of course.
Well, I was going to say, I get plenty of cold shoulders, but, you know, it's like for every 50 cold shoulders, I'll get one warm one. But the one warm one, like you said, like the Bob Proctor quote, it's like, you know, I can put the blinders on. It's like, as long as I get one good piece of feedback, I can, you know, block out the 50 other people who ignored me, or didn't even bother reading it, or didn't even bother acknowledging,
that's true,
you know, the fact that I submitted to them or whatever. So, you know, it doesn't take much for me to get back on the horse. You know, it's like I see one tiny little glimmer of hope, and I'm like, that's all I need. You know, as opposed to like this overwhelming reassurance. It's not always overwhelming. But also, we talked about knowing thyself. And it's like, you've got something in you. I know I've got something in me.
Right.
Do I know if anybody will ever acknowledge it? I don't know that. But I know that I just need to forge on with my path, regardless of the acknowledgement, because I have to stay true to who I am.
You're doing the right thing, Jen. You really are. You've got chutzpah and charisma and soul and class. And I can't say it enough. What can I say? You're definitely doing the right things, and your story is very inspiring. That's for sure. So, if you ever had a time where let's say you're in an acting or anything or a play or whatever, you really prepared. I guess you work hard and prepare for something, and for some reason your mind blanked. You forgot a line or something was out of place. Did you ever have anything like an embarrassing moment that happened? And if you did, how did you handle that? How did you deal with that?
Yes, I definitely did. Early on in New York, when I was working on a Shakespeare piece, I was working on Antony and Cleopatra, and the person who was supposed to feed me my cue line messed up, and then I blinked because I didn't know where, because, you know, and with Shakespeare, you can't really ad lib. So I remember I was standing there like a deer in headlights, and thank God the actress who was next to me on stage kind of like whispered my line to me, and I was able to move forward. But it was devastating. It was devastating. It was super embarrassing. Like, I barely was able to get through the rest of the production because of that.
You were lucky that somebody was there that cared and helped you.
Exactly. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster, and it would have been all my fault.
Like, that's terrible. Well, I know the last time on television when I was on Jimmy Kimmel's show, that was back in his first season, back in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun. But I'm doing my performance, and what happens if I all of a sudden forget something? So I gotta go on, act like nothing happened, and just fake it and just go right on. That's all. You got to fake it to make it. And then nobody knows you know, but nobody else knows. See? So that was cool. Yeah, I met Jimmy before he made it big in the business. He worked for on the Kevin and Bean show on KROQ. Jimmy was set up promotion on the radio, and I called and I couldn't get him. I said, forgotten about me. And all of a sudden, when I least expected, I got a call. We like your video. But what video? I didn't send you a video. We share Steve Harvey's office. So that was really cool. That was really nice. Yeah.
That's so exciting.
That's on the different performance things I have are on johnnyblaze.com if you ever check them out sometimes.
Yes, I did.
And a YouTube channel. You have a great YouTube channel yourself, I noticed. All these different episodes. You have any advice now for anybody who wants to make it in the business? What do you think that they should
Make your own break, baby. Make your own break. My tagline for that business is stop waiting, start creating, and make your own break. And a lot of people feel like that advice is daunting, and I know the phrase can be daunting, and it's like, well, what do you mean? So I mean, don't wait for somebody to pick you. Find a community that you can be a part of, or start a community that you can be a part of. And when I say community, that can be find one other actor from acting class and write a 5-minute piece, and find somebody to hold the camera for you and make a little short film and submit it to some festivals. And if you get rejected from all the festivals, put it up on YouTube. If you think it's terrible and you don't want to put it up on YouTube, learn from that experience, find a better piece of writing, find a better person to hold a camera, rinse and repeat, and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And you never know. One day you might win an award in New York, and you might have a book, and you might get to go to the Cannes Film Festival.
Like Tom Hanks said in the movie Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get.
Yes, but if you sit around waiting, you can be waiting for the rest of your life, and you can never get picked.
That's true.
But if you keep making stuff, and if you keep getting better, and if you keep working on your craft, and if you're serious about what you're doing, someone's going to find you. Someone's going to see something you're doing. And eventually, all of these tiny little things that you're doing are going to lead to bigger things and bigger things and bigger things. And you just have to stay committed. And I think the problem is a lot of people just don't love it enough. A lot of people move to Hollywood or move to New York or want to get into the entertainment business, and they just want to be famous. They want to be Insta-famous. Well, Insta-famous, that's what Instagram is for.
Right.
That's not about living a creative life or living an artistic life. And I think a lot of people think, okay, I went to acting class and now I know everything. And no, acting class is the gym. You don't go to the gym, get your goal weight, and then never go back to the gym. There's a certain amount of maintenance that we need to do as creatives. As a writer, you can't just write like once every 3 years. Writers are working on their work all the time. They're not necessarily writing every day. I'm not the type of person who writes every day, but you're staying inspired regularly. You're studying other people's writing. Over the pandemic, I've read every single episode of Seinfeld, every script of Seinfeld.
Seinfeld's a favorite of mine. Oh, yeah, that's great.
It's my favorite, but just as an education, not because, yes, of course, they're fun and I love them, but as a writer, that's part of my homework. okay, fine, I'm not writing a sitcom right now, but I will be. So why not study the best sitcom ever written and read every single episode before you start writing your own?
Makes sense. Yeah, because you're using that as a guideline. You're using that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many things we can do in our own home, in our own living room, in our own bedroom to keep ourselves inspired, to keep ourselves in that creative mode, in process. That's the key. Stay in process and find partners. This was a community idea. Find partners, whether it's actors, writers, directors. There are so many creative people who are in the same boat as you. They have talent, they have ability, they just haven't been given an opportunity. So be that person. Give your friends that opportunity and bring them along with you. Like, come on, look at how many teams of creatives work together repeatedly. How many times have Ron Howard and Tom Hanks worked together? You know, it started way back with Splash, I think.
Wow.
Was their first project. You know, they made Splash. It took them a decade and a half to win the Oscar. They didn't win the Oscar together in that first movie they made. You know, look at like Judd Apatow and Paul Rudd. Look at Seth Rogen and Aaron Goldberg. Like, there are people who partner and you enjoy working together. Adam Sandler works with the same people all the time. This isn't
Adam Sandler, boy, he's a genius. He's very talented. Steven Spielberg's another great director. Oh yeah, started off with E.T. and he did Duel. That's another one. He did quite a few.
Yeah,
Encounters of the Third Kind, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you name it. Schindler's List. He did so many of them. Oh yeah.
So many, and he's so incredible. But that's the thing, and a lot of people tend to work with the same partners over and over again. I don't mean partners as like your business partner, but I mean, you know, the people that you're bouncing off of, like whether it's a director-actor partnership or a writer-director partnership, you know, because you can grow together, you can learn together, and you can bring each other up together.
That's right. Nobody does it by themselves. People have to have help. That's for sure. Any great stars will tell you they didn't do it by themselves. They had help. And you have mentors and people have inspired you, and so, but you have so much of like a rah-rah, like a cheerleader type. You have so much boom and enthusiasm, and I love it. No, I love it. It's really great. No, it is.
I'm such a nerd. I feel so blessed. I just love what I do. And I feel like I'm one of like the luckiest people in the world that I've been able to figure out a way to keep doing it.
Yes.
20 years later.
You know what? The helping hand you're looking for is the end of your own arm. You're making your own break. And you're leading people in the right path so you can trailblaze other people. And if I did it, you can too. There you go. Quitters never win. Winners never quit. I like your enthusiasm and attitude. And you probably like favorite movies, some type of favorite movies. I bet you did like some of Tom Hanks' movies, not only Forrest Gump, probably Sleepless in Seattle or Email. Probably liked all those.
Yeah, I did. I really liked Philadelphia. As much as I love comedic stuff and I do comedic writing, my show was comedic, Dumpwater Divas is comedic, but my short films are more on the dramatic noir side. So I do like things that have a more serious tone. I am a huge Tom Hanks fan, and Splash is one of my favorite movies that I mentioned. But one of my favorite movies of all times is a little obscure. It's called She's So Lovely. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
She's So Lovely. Oh.
Yes. It is Nick Cassavetes' first film. It was written by John Cassavetes.
Really?
And it stars Sean Penn, Robin Wright, John Travolta, James Gandolfini, and Debbie Mazur.
Is it a comedy?
It is not a comedy.
No,
it is
a drama?
It's a drama. It is, to me, that's like a masterpiece. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. And then another one is Secretary with Maggie Gyllenhaal and James Spader. That's kind of a dark comedy. And
Secretary, and the first one, what was that again? The first one you said?
Called She's So Lovely.
She's So Lovely. Okay, and Secretary. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Those are two of my favorites. I'd say Dirty Dancing is third.
Dirty Dan. Oh yeah, with Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze. Dirty Dan.
Yes. Yeah, I think I must have seen that movie 1,000 times before I was 10 years old.
Great. Yeah.
I love that movie. Moulin Rouge is definitely up there. I absolutely love Baz Luhrmann and just the vivid camera work and the colors and the costume, like the production value of Moulin Rouge, and of course Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor are just magic together in that.
But Clark Gable and Gone with the Wind, or Love Story, or Romeo and Juliet. You probably liked those types.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Love Story. Oh,
well, yeah.
Yeah, such a good one. And
then
then
I'm going to say you're sorry. That's right. Of course.
Yeah. I also love Natural Born Killers. It's
Natural Born Killers.
Mhm. Yeah, with Juliette Lewis and Woody Harrelson, and Oliver Stone movie, Quentin Tarantino script.
Okay. So you like some? It sounds like you like some chilling shockers.
Yeah, I do. It's funny. As much as I love doing comedy, I love performing comedy, but the types of movies that I gravitate towards are definitely more dramatic.
Basic Instinct. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, Basic Instinct.
Michael Douglas. Yeah,
yes, I actually. So I have a feature film that I wrote that I'm trying to get off the ground right now. And it's so funny because like somebody asked me like what kind of movie is it, and I'm like, it's the kind of movie Michael Douglas wishes he was 30 years younger so he could be in.
There was another one he did too. I'm trying to think. It was somewhere to Basic Instinct. I can't think of it.
Fatal Attraction.
That was it. Fatal Attraction. Glenn Close. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he also did Disclosure with Demi Moore. There was this whole string of like sexual thrillers that he did in like the late 80s, early 90s. And I'm trying, it's like it's a lofty goal, but I'm trying to bring that genre back.
You are. Okay. Now, you've done a lot of stand-up. I know you did a lot of stand-up. I guess if you have to, well, I interviewed a lady who was a sit-down comic. That was what she did. It was one of my shows. But, sometimes they joke around. If you can't stand up, sit down. But you did a lot of stand-up. I know you did quite a few stand-ups. Tell me about the different stand-up comedies that you did also.
Yeah. So what was it? It's got to be like 6 years ago now. So I started stand-up. I actually replied to a casting ad where they were looking for cute girls who were funny. And I was like, I can be cute. I can be funny. So I submitted to this casting on LA Casting, having absolutely zero clue that it was to do stand-up. So this guy named Matt Taylor contacts me and he's like, hey, so do you want to do stand-up? And I'm like, no, that's terrifying. I'm like, no, that's not what I do. And he's like, come on, like I can help you come up with 5 minutes. I can coach you. He's like, because I book shows and I don't have enough females on my shows. I need to find more female comedians. And this was like just before Amy Schumer exploded. So it was not more than 6 years. It was 7 years ago. I did my first stand-up in like 2014. So yeah, it was about 7 years ago. And I was terrified and I never thought I would do it. And he just kind of encouraged me. He's like, oh, come on, you can come up with something. So I did, and I did that first 5 minutes at some Ukrainian restaurant with a piano on Melrose and Highland, something along those lines. And I didn't suck.
You didn't suck?
I didn't suck.
That's great.
So then I was like, okay, well, maybe this is something I could do. So that first year, I was doing a lot of bringer shows, which means that you need to bring a certain amount of people in the audience. You have to sell a certain amount of tickets for your stage time.
Like a quota, okay.
Yeah, in the stand-up comedy world, they call them bringer shows.
Oh.
between 6 and like 8 p.m. before they started their real shows, you could pay for your time and you could, kind of work out your set. So I started doing that, and somebody asked me to be in a contest. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll be in a contest. I'll try seeing what happens. And it went pretty well. I think I was like in the top 3 that night.
You weren't scared at all? And you didn't forget any lines on any of these shows?
Oh, it's always terrifying. It's always terrifying, but I did it anyway. So that was fun. And but one of the big things is when I first started, I was a dirty comic. I did a lot of dirty material, and I did a lot of dirty jokes.
You wrote your own material, or did you get other jokes from other people?
No, I wrote all my own material. I did not steal anybody's material. I did not borrow. I did not steal. It was all based on my experiences. And most of my first set when I started was things that I actually said to people in real life that I just didn't, that my friends would be like, oh, that's really funny. Like, you should write that down and put it in one of your things. So I had like a little notebook of a collection of things that people over the years had said, like, that's funny, write that down, save it for something. So that's kind of how I started my first set. But my first set was, like I said, super dirty about sex and dating and all of that stuff. And I mentioned Amy Schumer before.
Did you get good reviews?
Yeah, well, the thing is,
you got good reviews on that?
It was easy to get laughs with the dirty stuff. It was easy. And then Amy Schumer broke, and I give so much respect to Amy Schumer. She is a baller. She is a trailblazer female comedian. I just personally don't love her material. I feel like the dirty stuff and the sexual stuff is kind of lazy. And I know I was lazy, and that's why I did that stuff, because I didn't have to, it didn't take as much brain power as telling cleaner jokes and getting the laughs without relying on, how dirty can I be right now? I'm like, should I give you an example of a joke?
You want to tell me a joke, a sample of a joke? Tell me.
Well, you know what I mean? Because it's, because I had a whole bit about the beard, and I'm like, what's with the beard? Like, you guys have made the beaver extinct in modern society, and now you're wearing bush on your face. And I know it's not because you're lazy, because you all shave your fucking balls. You know what I mean? So like, it was funny, but was it clever? Was it intelligent? Was it the brand I wanted to be known for? So I went through, within my first 2 years of doing stand-up, my first year I was doing really dirty stuff like that, and I was getting lots of laughs, and it was very funny. And then when I saw Amy Schumer, it's like, I'm kind of doing what she's doing, but I don't want to be known for that.
I see.
And I was like, okay, like if I make it, what do I want to be known for? And I was like, well, of course I would rather be a George Carlin than an Amy Schumer. And once again, she's a baller. Mad respect to Amy Schumer. Like, she's got an amazing career. She's done movies. She makes a lot of money. She's awesome.
What about Phyllis Diller? How about Phyllis Diller, or what's the other one? There was
Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers, that's what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. And there's Nikki Glaser, and there's a lot of, dirty female comedians, and that's fine. But that's not what I wanted to be. So I kind of, once again, did some soul searching, and it's like, okay, what do I want to be known for? If I'm going to take up this space in the world,
right,
what message do I want to put out there? And that's when my, comedy took a turn. And I've been just I started talking about being a vegan, and I started talking about not buying, because my whole life went through an overhaul when I became a vegan, because a lot of people think it's just your diet, but it's not. It's every single product that I buy now needs to be vegan. So like all of my face wash, all of my makeup, all of my hair products, all of my clothing, all of, everything. And then, when you become aware of one thing, then you become aware of another thing. So it's like, okay, now I know, like, I can't subscribe to like animal slavery. Well, what about slave labor in sweatshops? It's like, how can I care more about animals than people who are being exploited and abused? So then I was like, okay, these are all things that are super important to me. Can I craft funny jokes where I can talk about things that are important to me and feed it to an audience that doesn't necessarily want to be lectured at? But if I can feed it to them in a funny, palatable way, then I can achieve my purpose as an artist, which is to provoke thought. I can make people think.
So make them laugh and think at the same time.
Exactly.
Educative. That's great. How do you deal with hecklers now on stage? Anybody ever heckle you or give you a hard time?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny, like self-deprecation. I think self-deprecation. Like I never attack a heckler. Like I never, because also you don't know what their day was like. Everybody's fighting their own secret battles, and I really take that to heart. And I don't want to attack anyone. I don't want to make anyone feel bad about themselves. And also, these people are paying, they're paying for their tickets. They're paying for their 2-drink minimum. They're paying for parking in Hollywood. Right. Like, and if they feel the need, to like unleash something, then I'm not going to just ignore it. I'm definitely going to address it. But I'll usually, turn it on myself and go into some sort of self-deprecating bit.
So you make a joke about it, I guess. You act like it's no big thing. Okay.
Well, yeah, because that's the thing. Like, you can't take anything personally.
Otherwise, they get angry. Yeah, if they sense that it gets under your skin, they'll do it more and more. That's right. You don't want that.
No, and also you don't want the heckler to take over the room.
That's
if
true.
If it becomes a back and forth between you and the heckler.
Right.
Like, that's never a good,
no, that's not good. You don't want them to control you. You want to control them. Otherwise, you take over your show. So you don't want them to give them that power. That's right.
Exactly.
That's great. I want to ask you now, I do want to ask that you would do differently, or would it be the same, or anything different?
It's really hard to say, because I'm so grateful for the path that I took, because I learned so much along the way, like all of the hardships I've had and all of the rejection, and, all of that has pushed me to become the artist that I became. In terms of like, if I booked, a reoccurring role on a TV show in my early 20s, would I have ever become a writer? Would I have ever become a filmmaker? Would I have ever become a producer? Would I ever have the power to create and spearhead projects that I have now, and take that 20-something-year-old actor who gets a series, let's say it's on the air for 5 years. 5 years is an amazing run for a series to be on the air. And then, maybe you don't get another series, but you also don't have those skills to spearhead something. So, you know what I mean? It's like, you can speculate, but I try not to. I think of a couple of roles that I turned down early on. When I first moved to New York, I was offered the role of Anne Frank to go on a school tour. And it was an equity paying job. And I was very arrogant. At like 20 years old, I was like, I didn't move to New York to go to every, podunk town in the United States performing for elementary school students. I'm staying in New York. So I stayed in New York, and I ran a theater company in the East Village off Broadway that, you know, I had to raise the money for. I wasn't making the money, and I wasn't equity. I didn't get my equity card till many, many, many years later. But I developed so many skills.
If you had to do it over again, it would be, you want to do something different, or you're pretty content with what you have done?
Well, it's the trade-off. It's the trade-off of, yeah, I don't know. Like, you know, sometimes I think about, like, my career trajectory would have been completely different had I taken that job.
Okay. So would I be satisfied? You have no regrets then. It's not like you have no regrets. You're happy with the way things have turned out. And maybe you would have done things differently, and maybe not. Sounds like.
Yeah, you know, and I actually don't really spend too much time dwelling on that, because you can't go back and change it. So what's the point? That's true. You cannot. Okay. I just thought, you know, I like to analyze things. Yeah, no, it's definitely a fair question, and you're not the first person who has asked me that. And
okay.
You know, yeah, it's, you know, who knows?
Nobody knows. That's right.
Yeah.
No. Anyway, do you have any present projects you're working on right now, and any what you call dream projects that you'd like to do in the future?
Oh, yeah. Well, I am working on a couple of things right now. So I mentioned I have a script, Longing. It's a very tumultuous.
What was that? I didn't hear that.
I have a script, a feature film script called Longing, and I am in the fledgling production stages. It's about 4 couples whose relationships are falling apart, who all become intertwined. They become entangled in like a tumultuous love affair type deal. This is the one that I'm like, Michael Douglas wishes he was 30 years younger to be in my movie. To be in one of those, you know, very racy, dramatic films. So I have some money raised, and I'm working on raising the rest. And this is going to be, I'm going to direct it. It'll be my first time directing a feature. I directed my last short. I wore all the hats. I wrote it, produced it, was in it, and directed it. So I'm looking forward to this. I am gearing up towards a late 2022 production. So that's something very exciting that I've got on the go. I have 2 theatrical pieces that I'm writing. I am working on a homeless woman.
A homeless woman, okay.
Yes, the homeless situation has become an epidemic, both in Toronto and in a lot of big cities in the United States. And I happen to know somebody whose father is schizophrenic and is a homeless person on the street. And I want to tell the story through the point of view of the family who lost their loved one, not necessarily from the point of view of the person on the street who's, you know, become like an annoyance to society. Let's put it that way. So I'm working on this piece right now, and it deals with mental illness, and it deals with like the mental illness crisis we're going through, and why so many people are on the street, and how it's not being addressed.
Is that going to be a feature film, or is it going to be a documentary? What is it going to be?
I'm working on it as a play right now.
Okay.
A play is a little more contained, and a play allows for development in terms of I can workshop the play, and then I can go rewrite it, and then we can workshop it again in terms of the piece being developed. Whereas with a film, you're not going to write it, shoot it, go back. And
when you're talking about now, is this your dream project, or is there something else that you haven't done that you'd like to do for a dream project?
So this is something I'm currently writing right now.
Okay, it's current. Okay.
I do have a dream project.
Okay.
So I have 2.
Okay.
The first one is a little kooky, but I'm kooky. So I am obsessed with the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series.
Oh.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. But I grew up hooked on Buffy, and it was my dream to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, that's all I wanted in life. Like, so I actually have this idea for a script called Buffy the Vampire, about an adult version, because Buffy was a teenager and in her early 20s in the series. That was the age of the character. So this is about Buffy, like, as a grown woman who happened to get killed and turned into a vampire.
That sounds very interesting. It sounds
so it's the character of Buffy the Vampire Slayer
as an adult,
as a vampire.
A vampire.
So,
so you're embellishing upon what you've seen, and you're creating and making it bigger and better, making it more exciting.
I've sent Joss Whedon. I've written him so many letters, like asking to chat with him and have conversations with him. He's a huge inspiration to me. He created the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series, Angel, Firefly, Dollhouse, and he directed the Avengers. A few of the Avengers movies. So he's huge now.
He's a real inspiration, a motivator.
He's a real inspiration. So my dream role, my dream project is to be Buffy the Vampire, which is so out there and crazy, but you never know. Like, crazy things happen in Hollywood.
That could be a major feature film. That sounds like, it could.
So that's one of my dream projects. And my other dream project, so when I was running this little theater company in New York, the company was a resident artist group at a bigger company. So, like, this theater company had 6 little resident artist groups that they would nurture. And we would get the space for free, and we would get, the rehearsal space for free and the performance, and they would, give us feedback along the way and script development. That's how I learned the ropes. So there was another resident artist group at the theater, and they did a version of Antony and Cleopatra, but they did it true to script. Did you ever see Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio back in the 90s?
I remember Romeo and Juliet. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he kept it true to script, but with setting and costumes and stuff, he completely updated the version. So when I was in New York, I saw a version of Antony and Cleopatra where it was set in Las Vegas, and Cleopatra wasn't the queen. She was like the Star Vegas showgirl. And her ladies in waiting were the other showgirls, and Antony and Caesar, they were the mob. But it was 100% true to the Shakespearean script, but just using setting and props and costumes. They based it in like 50s Las Vegas, like zoot suits and showgirls and all that type of thing.
Sounds very exciting, yeah.
So my other dream project is to be Cleopatra the showgirl in this mob version of Antony and Cleopatra.
That's hot. That's blazing hot. Yeah, there you go, girl. Both the Buffy character and now the Cleopatra character. Wow,
yeah,
you're a character.
I'm a total Shakespeare nerd. And also, like I mentioned, I'm Tunisian. So Cleopatra was the queen of Egypt. Egypt is like a neighbor of Tunisia. So I am from that part of the world. Like, that is my lineage. So it's not so crazy that I would play Cleopatra. I would just have to wear a dark wig.
I'll tell you, you have many talents, and you have many potential, all kinds of talents and capabilities and characters, and you're doing a little everything, and you won many awards. It sounds like you've won all kinds of awards.
Just that one, but it's a good start.
How many awards did you say you won?
No, it's just only one, just the Audience Choice Award for my show.
Oh, the one in Cannes? Okay.
No, Cannes, we just had the screenings of the films. I won the Audience Choice Award at the Fringe Festival in New York.
Oh, I see. Okay.
For the show. So yeah, one award, but it's a good start.
Well,
I'll
Jen
take it.
Lieberman, you have had and continue to have a most exciting, rewarding, and beautiful and wonderful life. And
Thank you.
your smile, your charisma, and your talent, and you're just so interesting. And this time has gone by so fast. I really enjoyed it.
I know, me
One to
too.
another. I mean, I do my best to try to be as prepared as I can be, of course, with you or any type of a interview or show that I do. So I've enjoyed it very much. I really, yeah. I was wondering, how can people, as we get ready to wrap up, I've enjoyed it very much. How can people find out more about you?
So my website is jenniferliebermanactor.com. And if people are interested in the novel Year of the What, that's yearofthewhat.com. And if anybody's interested in the how-to books or my production advice or anything like that, you can go to makeyourownbreak.com.
Okay.
And yeah, those are the easiest ways to find me. And then I have a mailing list, so any of those websites will allow you to sign up for my mailing list, and the mailing list will have information. I don't send a million newsletters out, but I send them out once a quarter, and it keeps you up to date with what's going on. And if I do have any special events like stand-up comedy shows, performances, or book signings, that will be announced in the newsletter also.
And a shout out to your publicist for setting up this interview, Mickey.
Oh, Mickey is the best.
How did you meet Mickey, your publicist?
So when I started doing the I Never Thought I Would interviews with authors, I started with people that I knew, and then I found a podcast list with individuals looking for podcast interview opportunities. So I would get that list every week, and anybody who had a book, I would ask them to be on my show. And in the personal development space, which was great, but I didn't want to only talk to personal development people because I'm a fiction writer. I wanted to talk to more authors who had fiction. So I looked up some literary publicists in Canada, and I came across Mickey, and I asked him if his clients might be interested in coming and chatting with me. And that's how I got to know Mickey. And then we liked each other, and I liked his work and what he was about. And he was doing great work for all of his clients. And he got to know me and more about my work and all the things that I did. And that's how we started working together. But he's really fabulous. He's so on the ball.
Yeah, he's a heck of a nice guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank him for helping me set up this interview with you. Like I say, it's been a pleasure. You're charming, you're charismatic, your smile, your personality. Keep being blazing and amazing as you are, Jen Lieberman. Okay.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for being my guest. And I say the time went by really fast. And until next time, Jen. For all my fans, always keep a smile on your face and a smile on your face and a song in your heart. Happy trails and blaze out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to appear on a Zoom entertainment talk show, please send us an email at amazingoriginalJBshow@gmail.com. All of our guests will receive a complimentary DVD of their appearance on the show. And feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Every show receives at least 1,300 views, so be sure to check this out. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the amazing original Johnny Blaze has just left the building. Good night and God bless. Mwah.